Welcome to the Self-Storage Insight Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to talk about operating a self-storage facility and driving the efficiencies of move-ins and retention of customers. This episode is brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a property management software that allows you to pass the fees for credit card processing onto your tenant, freeing up some cap space for your business. You can learn about CC Storage at ccstorage.com. Brett, thank you so much for joining me today. Super excited to have you on the show. And the thing I wanted to kind of talk about today was going to be the operations, as somebody gets started in self-storage or somebody's, adding additional facilities, the operations that go into that. And so, Brett, if you don't mind, maybe we'll kind of start off with the first part of operating a facility, obviously would be, to me, getting people in the door, right? Like I have to have customers, I have to fill my units before I can provide a good customer experience or anything else or drive retention. So what are you seeing in terms of getting your occupancy rates up? What have been the biggest drivers of increasing your occupancy?
Yeah, well, the first part I'll say is very, very happy to report that we finally have a busy season again, whereas last year the industry just completely missed the busy season. It was the first time in 20 years we didn't get one. And so
Yeah.
we have seen a dramatic increase in leads tenfold. I mean, rentals are way up, traffic's way up, calls are way up, search results are way up. Which is really, really nice to see because we've always, as a business, relied on that. And then now it's more competitive. And so pricing is probably the number one reason people are, the one thing you have to manipulate to get these rentals. So 84% of people are choosing to rent because of prices. So you have to be very on top of the revenue management game for your promotions, the rates to bring people in. And then now we're seeing a more competitive environment with websites and SEO and paid ads and those kinds of things. So you've seen a big uptick in paid ads, and even the budgets have gone up $100, $200, $300. And now you're seeing some other stuff like Go Local for us uses PMAX ads, which is in a bunch of different places, like could be Facebook, Instagram, all sorts of other avenues. And those are starting to get really popular as well. So I think a combination of seeing the surge, but you just have to be really dialed in now on your online marketing, your paid marketing, as well as your revenue management, more than you've ever had to be in the last, 10, 15 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is getting so much more competitive. And that's where, I talk to a lot of different facilities, between what we do with software implementations and things like that. And we deal a lot with customers that are coming still from like Excel even, or haven't used software in the past. And I mean, I always try to let them know, like, that game you're playing a losing game if you're still not using some type of software and you're not doing online rentals. Everybody is searching for facilities online now. Even if they don't move in online directly, that's where they're finding what's available. They're looking at who's competitive, what are their rates. You have to have that kind of stuff visible to the market to even start the conversation with a customer, whether they call to move in or whether they show up at your facility. You have to be online. You have to be playing that game because it's become so much more competitive.
Totally. Yeah. And reviews matter more than ever. More people are finding us on Google Maps than ever before. And that's a huge proponent for millennials and below, is the self-storage near me. And that really all relies on Google Maps at that point. Apple Maps is a little bit less important, not as much used, but Google Maps is very serious. And the only way to climb that is reviews, good interactions, and then that will help build your ranking locally.
Mm-hmm. I actually was just talking to a company the other day, and they were actually starting to do like an incentive program where they're incentivizing customer reviews with like a 10% discount for the month's rent. Just because they realize like that's what's driving their online presence. If you can get good feedback and good customer reviews on Google, that helps your business so much. So it's actually, like, to them, they said it's a no-brainer for us to give a little bit of a kickback to our customers to help with our online marketing, because it's getting them in front of more people organically versus having to do more paid ads to get in front of some of them people. So there are a lot of people that are starting to realize that and starting to implement some things like that, where they're getting a little more strategic about how they're showing up online.
Yeah, we to do that, we basically pay all of our agents. So any of our customer service center agents that rent units, take payments, the deal with customers, they're all paid bonuses per 5-star review across the board. And we saw, I think this time last year, we probably would get 30, 40 reviews a month, and we're at 500, 600 reviews a month, and average of maybe 4.6 stars. I mean, those incentives make a huge difference. You have to be a little careful with tenants because technically, under Google's terms, if they find out, which would be difficult, but if they find out that you were incentivizing the tenants to leave reviews, they can shut down your Google My Business and freeze it. And
Mhm.
I've seen it happen to a couple people, but it was pretty egregious where they promised to give discounts and then customers went on and left reviews about the incentive. And then
Right.
Google's like, hold on now, you're paying tenants to leave your reviews. That's, you can't do that. But most
Yeah.
people probably never get caught with that. But
Mhm.
definitely incentivizing your own employees is a huge way to get those reviews. No question.
Right, for sure. And then it's just on the front of everybody's mind too, as far as like, it's one of them things. If you don't think about it and you don't tell the customer multiple times, they usually forget. I mean, I'm terrible with like, I do a lot better with it now because I have a smaller business and
Mhm.
it reviews matter a lot to us. And so I'm usually a little bit more conscious of like somebody asks me for a review and I usually try to leave reviews now. But at the same time, there's a lot of times where I was like, I just remember like I had a salesman that he actually helped us when we were building our house. He set up our water softener or whatever. And he gave me his card and he's like, hey, I get, if you can leave a review and let us know how we did, that'd be awesome. And I had every intention of doing it. And I think it's been a year and I've just completely forgot multiple
Yep.
times. And so it's just one of them things like if you're not staying in front of people with it and you're not bringing it up, they're not going to probably follow through on it. So you have to be a little bit strategic about how you bring it to
About the
customer.
texting, you're so much more likely if you get a text that you hit a button and it takes you straight to Google and you type it in on your phone. We
Mhm.
found those like cards, emails, any of that kind of stuff. We don't get near the result. But once you've done it with a human and you give them the human interaction asking for it, the texting follow through is huge because it's so easy just to go do it at that point.
Right. And that kind of brings me into, the whole operations side of running a self-storage facility is having the different avenues and making sure you're communicating with your customers or your leads using different platforms like that, right? So being able to answer the phones would be a big one for me. Like if somebody has questions, they need a call that somebody needs to pick up the phone and tell them, and be informative about the business or, be able to help them move in, that sort of thing. But then also, yeah, texting follow-ups, email notifications, that sort of thing are so crucial. If you don't already have that in place, you're way behind already. Like that's something that you should definitely have already implemented.
100%. Oh, can't stress that enough. And especially ties back to the first thing we talked about, which in today's market, to get those rentals and to acquire customers, you just have to answer the phone. When you have
Mhm.
80% of people rent from the first two places called, you really have to be good about who's answering to be able to get those rentals.
Yeah. So with you guys kind of as far as seeing more of a busy season and how operations are picking up and everything's busier, how much of that plays into phone calls? Like how much busier are your phone lines right now versus
A lot.
wintertime, December to January?
I would say on the number of units ratio, calls this time of year can go up 20, 30% across the portfolio. I mean, it's a huge jump
Mhm.
because of the number of incoming leads. So you're always going to get like payment calls and questions about my bill and locks, and all that's directly proportional to the occupancy of the facility and number of units. But
Right.
now when you go from 10 leads a month at a facility to 60, and then you multiply that across the board, it really results. And then the more rentals you get, the more calls that those active tenants will probably call back about something else or have questions or whatever. So it compounds. So you can
Mhm.
see anywhere of 10 to 30% jump in those phone calls. It's a which in our case could be 10,000 phone calls a month. So it's a big jump.
Right. Let me ask you this question. I'm kind of going to put you on the spot here because I didn't plan on it or just kind of thought of it was like if somebody moves in, via a phone call, they call and your support agent helps them move in on, through their assistance, or if they move in online, how many times do you get like another follow-up call from that person before they actually move in? Like they call back with a question, hey, where's my gate code? Whatever the question may be. Do you get a lot of like, multiple interactions with a customer before they actually get moved in and figure everything out?
We used to get a lot more, and what we did is we dialed in what are they calling back about, what are the questions, and then it was okay, well, can we try to supply this information on the front end on the first call and then follow up with like text emails with those most asked questions. So
Mhm.
instead of it just being the old school where we would send an e-lease once it's completed and it says, hey, here's your gate code and all that, they never read it. So it's like, okay, well, what else can we do? So we send that, and then we follow up with a text and an email, both showing all the information they call about. So it probably went from maybe a 20-30% of people that rent, they'll call you again, when either while they're moving in or right before, to maybe 10-15%. So we always try to find ways to automate questions and answers so that way we don't have to have the calls as much, and it's an easier process.
Yeah. And that's so important too, as far as like evaluating processes and figuring out where's your bottlenecks, what sort of things are you running into, and then making adjustments. Even with something like self-storage, it seems pretty simple, pretty basic for somebody that's coming into the industry. Like I'm renting out a box, right? There are so many little things that you can reevaluate and improve these little processes to save yourself a lot of time, to be more efficient, to be able to operate the facility, more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's awesome. As far as then with move-ins going, online stuff driving a lot of traffic, and having good Google reviews and a good a business listing. And then what have you guys seen in terms of like paid ads? Do you guys do a lot of paid ads for your facilities? What's that been like in the marketplace?
Pretty much any facility that's under, and sometimes it depends on owner, but let's say 90% or under 85%, that's usually the window. There'll be some sort of paid ad, unless you're just in a market where no one else really has a website, no one else is doing good marketing, then you typically don't need it. But paid ads in most cases is going to be more cost effective than the current self-storage aggregation websites. So where you see like a Sparefoot or selfstorage.com, which can be good products, but they're very expensive now to be able to rent. And so currently PPC, so paid Google ads, pay-per-click ads, end up being a lot lower cost. So most stores probably pay anywhere, depending on where they are in lease up, to maybe $200 a month. Some in a super competitive market could be $800 a month, but they fall somewhere in between. And those change month over month based on
Right.
what the market is doing. So, once people go down, every month we make new recommendations, and I highly suggest that. If you're a current owner and you're trying to do it yourself, or you find a local firm, you don't just set it and forget it. You really want to see, am I getting a good ROI? Am I getting enough clicks? Are they resulting in rentals? And then you adjust that pay up or down depending on where you're ranking in the market, how many clicks you're getting. So you don't want to go just waste your money. I've seen some owners that the recommended budget's 500, and they say, well, I'm fine, I'll spend 1,500. Well, if from 800 to 1,500 only results you in one extra rental, that extra $700 isn't worth the rental. So you
Right.
really don't just throw money at it. Make sure you're looking at the numbers.
Yeah. And I would also say on that too, I mean, we evaluate ours probably twice a week. We sit down, we look at, what's our pay-per-click at, where are we showing up as far as, are we at the top? Are we second, third? And we make constant adjustments through the month. So while I have like a monthly budget of here's how much I want to spend and add money on pay-per-click and stuff, the competition drives that, right? So as they increase their bid, my bid is going to go up because I'm on a daily budget, pay-per-click conversion type campaign. So it does take a lot of monitoring. So it's definitely, to your point, it's definitely not something that you want to set it and forget about it. It's going to take a lot of time looking into it. And that's also where I would recommend, for sure, if you are just an independent owner, you own a couple facilities and you're just managing them yourself or whatever, definitely bring in somebody that knows what they're doing, at least to get the campaign set up, because you'll waste a lot of money figuring out how to target the right keywords, doing phrase matches versus exact matches. Like there's so many pieces that go into ad campaigns that it definitely takes a little bit of work. And I don't even want to act like I know it all. I have a team that helps me with it, and we kind of sit down and try to figure it out. And I still make mistakes and blow money on it. So definitely work with somebody that knows what they're doing initially is going to save you a ton of money in the long run.
Yeah, it might as well be black magic to me. How they do it every day, I don't know. I know what the result is, but I'm like you. We have a team that does it, and they're good at it. And make sure it's complicated, right? It's so competitive now, and Google is the pinnacle for business of finding businesses and anything now. So you really got to make sure someone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Are you looking to take the day-to-day hassle out of facility management? Copper Storage Management offers fully remote and hybrid third-party management solutions nationwide. With more than 75 years of industry experience, the Copper Storage Management team will handle your facility's operations, call center services, marketing, collections, auctions, and bookkeeping while growing revenue and increasing your asset value. Connect with Copper today. Visit copperstoragemanagement.com. And then, so let's talk about, I guess, customer retention. One of the big things I've been hearing a lot more about, is as occupancy has been down, a lot more companies have been focusing on, making sure you can keep your customers a little bit longer. We're not just raising the rates quite as much and pushing people out the door because it's getting harder and harder to refill those units. So I've just heard a lot of different, even other podcasts that I listen to, they're all talking about, management strategies and things to keep people, a little more, a little more sticky with their facility, trying to keep them in there a little longer. What do you guys do as far as in terms of retention? Like if somebody comes to you and wants to move out, do you offer any type of like discount to keep them any longer? Or what do you do anything on that side of it?
Yeah, so the biggest one was altering rate increases, specific to the site. And so when you have sites that have struggled with, especially in the last year, where they were struggling with occupancy or they were renting a bunch of units, but they were mass move outs. Move outs were way up on the ratio compared to any other year. And so, because people just couldn't afford it anymore, inflation and everything else went up like crazy. And so people said, we're just going to get rid of our stuff. We don't need it that bad. Or maybe we're just going to shove it in an extra room in the house that we were going to use and now we don't. And so the first way is definitely getting the rate increases, slowing down the rate at which we do them, the amount of the rate increase, so the percentage as it relates to rent, taking really heavy consideration into why are you moving out? Is it the rate increase? Well, okay, you were scheduled for a 10% rate increase. Look, we'll do 3%, 4%, and doing a case by case basis to try to work with the tenant, especially if they have multiple units. That's become a much more popular than it used to be because you want to retain them. And before it used to be, we were all okay as an industry to race to the top and say, well, if you're paying 50% over rate, street rates, we're still going to give you a rate increase. Well, at some point, and everyone of the, that knew what they were doing in the business looked around and said, that's not going to last. People are going to get tired of that. Sure enough, that hit when the economy changed. So you have to be really sensitive. If you've got people at or right above street rate and your occupancy is not at, 85 plus 90%, maybe don't give them a rate increase because you're not going to replace them with somebody above that.
Right.
So you really have to kind of take that consideration. Then once your occupancy gets high enough, well, then all of a sudden it makes sense again to start pushing rates a little bit. But you got to be way more conscientious about it.
Mm-hmm. What have you seen in terms of like the REITs and what they're doing as far as, have you seen them be a lot more, as far as have they still been as aggressive as they were, or have they been backing off of it pretty substantially as well?
Depends on the REIT. Extra Space it famously created this strategy for bottoming rates out and then doing the quick rate increases. So within 3-4 months, and obviously they have thousands of stores and they do it a little differently at each. But that was their kind of the big first group to do that strategy. What they've done now is they're kind of doing the front end. So they look at it and say, we're going to just destroy rates, maybe $10 for a 10 by 10 to move in. And then in 3 to 4 months, we're going to do bigger rate increases. So they've kind of doubled down on the strategy. And for them, it might work at some of the facilities. But in our mind, while I don't think there's anything wrong with how anyone does their business. For us, we found maybe it's the type of markets we're in. It can do some damage to the tenants in the tenant base in the community there, where all of a sudden people start talking in a small tertiary town and they say, dude, I moved in for $10 for 10 by 10. I'm paying 150 in 3 months or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's difficult to recover from. And so I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Like if you're going to do that strategy, maybe it makes sense to do 50% of what the market rate is. And in 6 months, you can do a bigger rate increase depending on where occupancy is. But you don't want to poison the well and hurt your business from growing in the future. So it's a good short-term strategy and it can work. But man, if you're in it for 3 to 5 years, it can do some irreparable damage if you're not careful.
Yeah. And that's a great point that you bring up too, because storage is so local, right? Like my customers are all coming from a 3-mile radius around my business. A lot of people that I talk to are like, they're very involved in the community because you need to have a good community recognition or a community brand that people respect. because a lot of your customers know other potential customers or future customers, right? Like it's a very local business. Again, depending on the market, that 3 mile radius is going to have a lot of a different demographic, but it is a very local business. And so if you do, those rate increases and you get a bad reputation, you get some negative reviews and you get some people talking about you in a negative way, it can hurt your business way more than even the good reviews would help your
Yeah.
business. So that's definitely something to consider is, yeah, make sure you know your location, know your market, understand what kind of area that you're in before you just dive in on a strategy that could damage your brand.
Yeah.
Awesome. So along those lines, as far as, some of the other things that I've seen is as far as like, even upgrades to facilities to, help increase, the retention of customers or make them feel like, you're putting money into the facility. They feel a little more secure about it. I've seen people even saying things like they've gated their facility and that's helped increase retention as well as even move-ins and things like that, where they're putting money back into the facility. How much more important is it right now in this market to have your facility that's actually up to date and, I would even say partially automated and that sort of thing would all go in line, but putting some money back into the repairs and maintenance and the cleanliness and stuff like that of the facility, being also vital to a good customer experience.
Oh, it's huge, especially when you're buying these value add sites, which most people are targeting now. You're targeting something that either was an older facility, maybe it's being expanded, maybe it needs to be cleaned up or it had poor management. Oh, it's vital, more vital than ever. At this point, you have to be willing to make sure your property is in at least decent condition so that your lighting's good, because it's easy when a tenant comes in and they see, oh, they're patching the road, like these potholes that I saw when I came in. There's been plenty of facilities where you have owners that refuse to fix those things, and you can see directly on the reports, someone rents a unit, they move in, they immediately move out the next day, and you look at the report like, because I drove in and I almost busted my tire on the potholes, or I
Right.
got there and the gate was broken open. I mean, those things really make people move out in today's world. Break-ins as a country are up, crime's up. And so when you see those factors, if they're not seeing you, trying to improve, it doesn't mean you have to go spend a bunch of money you don't have. But when you make those small adjustments, they see that and be willing to communicate it to the tenants. I think a lot of times they might not know or might not realize it. And when you can send an email out saying, "Hey guys, just FYI, we just put in new lights. Let us know if that's sufficient. If you need more, hey, we just got the gate fixed, or we've reinstalled a new sensor, whatever it is. Let them know, so that way they can understand that you're actually caring about the facility and trying to improve it a little bit."
Right, for sure. One other thing that I kind of thought of too that I've seen multiple times just from the companies we've worked with as well has been like making sure that your online presence effectively matches the way your facility looks when a customer shows up, right? Like they'll have a really nice picture and you're not even sure if it's their facility or not till you actually get other images to put up on their website or as you're building out their online presence. And it's like, man, if you create this idea of like, oh, I'm going to a really nice facility and I have like a, elaborate photo as my home screen page. And then I get there and it's like, oh, this isn't at all what it looked like online. That's where you'll get a lot of people moving right back out as well through the online rental process of, I think that it's very important to make sure your facility looks nice enough that you can market it online without feeling like you should put up edited photos or anything like that, or Photoshop pictures of your facility.
Yeah, we've had owners that have come on before that put up like stock photos for a facility that doesn't exist. It's a different color or whatever
Yeah.
else. You're like, and then the customer shows up and they're like, I didn't even rent at the right place. Like the amount of confusion and this is not what I was sold. You definitely don't want to be known for that. I mean, they see that as just false advertising and they will just move right back out. Like I've seen them with movers already hired say, nope, we're going to go somewhere else, call one of your competitors and go take it down there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can't stress enough. If you can't get good pictures of it, that probably means you need to put a little bit more money into part of the facility, whether that's repainting some of it or fixing some doors or cutting the grass. It should be at least be picture worthy.
Yep, for sure. And then on the maintenance side of it, how much time or how often do you schedule like regular maintenance people going out doing repairs, that sort of thing at facilities versus waiting till stuff breaks to send anybody in? Is that a big part of the operations that you guys run?
Yeah, so even for the fully remote where we have someone going by just 1, 2 days a week, Every week they have a report they have to fill out, and they have to check for the typical maintenance, qualifiers, things that show us that there probably is going to need some maintenance work because we want to catch it before it happens. So checking all the vacant doors, looking at the springs, rolling it up and down, because odds are if one or two doors has issues, that means when some of these other units start moving out, they're going to have issues as well. And we're going to find more doors. So you want to stock up on some extra springs, those kinds of things, making sure you're doing preemptive maintenance like greasing the doors. That makes a huge difference, making sure that all of the lights work. So you can't, if your person just goes by 1, 2 days a week and they never go by just during the night, at least once a month, that's a big piece. You want to make sure that your lighting and everything else is working the way it's supposed to. So you just have to make sure that your person is constantly checking all of those most likely to break elements. So that way you're not getting a call from a tenant that's upset saying, man, I just showed up and all your lights are off, or these aren't working. It's pitch black. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Once you hear it from a tenant, you're too late. Is
Exactly.
always what I've felt like. I mean, yeah, you got to be staying on top of that. And yeah, again, it's not a set it and forget it thing. It requires a constant check in and making sure everything stays turned on the way it should be or up and running the way it should be. So awesome. As far as then the one other thought on, the operating a facility and, trying to increase your move-ins, trying to retain your customers, the one other thing I see that a lot of people ask about is then, efficiency, like how can I be more efficient with my facility? So, I mean, my thought on that is obviously automate everything that you can possibly automate, right? I want to spend as little time on the nuances of the business as I possibly can. For example, invoicing payments should be automatically accepted. I should get as many customers on auto pay as I can. So I'm dealing with collections less. Notifications and the way I contact or communicate with my tenants should be as automated as possible. What are some of your thoughts on that as far as, just other ways that we can continue to increase the efficiency at our facilities?
Yeah, it's really about when you automate those processes, some people get fearful and they're like, that's going to hurt the customer service experience, which it totally can. I just did for Storage Rebellion a presentation on AI created in storage. And the big point of it was AI and these automated processes are great for the monotonous task that we really don't need people dealing with. So, some automated collection stuff like emails and texts, some letters that go out, notices, those kinds of things. Basic question and answer, like the same 5, 10 questions you always get that easily a computer could answer for you, like your gate code, your bill questions. But
Right.
you can't let that get in the way of the human interaction. And so at the facility level, you do want to try to automate. If 40% of my customers want to rent by themselves, why in the world wouldn't I let them? I don't need to force them to have an interaction, but I'm not going to make them only use that interaction. We're still going to give you humans to talk to. So if you prefer to do business either way, hey, we're here for you. Well, that still frees up a ton of time for your call center or your managers, whoever else, to spend their time on new rentals and more serious customer service issues, and that kind of trickles all the way down. Same thing with chat. Same thing with when you send in insurance letters. Like if you can automate those processes where it automatically attaches to an account, there are so many other ways. But you're not taking away from the customer experience. You're just enhancing really the time of your managers to do more important tasks. I think
Right.
that's a nice line of demarcation. So don't let it take away from the face to face or person to person, voice to voice type interaction. You want that human interaction, but at least automate the processes that don't need it.
Right. And yeah, and I mean, my whole thought too behind technology is, yeah, like you don't want to get rid of the human interaction. You just want to make the human as efficient as
Yeah.
possible so they can do the important things that they need to be doing. Because whenever you're in the middle of a project or a task or whatever you may be doing as you're managing your facility, and you do get that phone call or you get that text or that email from the customer that is, it could be easily automated and you can't automate it, then it pulls you out of the thing that you're doing. And then it's harder to get back. At least for me, it's always hard when I get distracted with obviously a small question or somebody calls in with some support
Mhm.
question. Then it takes me a little while to get back in the train of thought and make sure I'm, back into the things that I need to be doing. So, yeah, just trying to make, the manager or whoever's on site as efficient as possible. I mean, that's where automation, I feel like is at its finest, is improving the human. It doesn't mean remove the human. So yeah, for sure. Great, great,
Totally.
great points. Awesome, Brett. Well, is there anything else that you had kind of thought of there as far as in terms of any of those questions? Or I know we kind of went a little bit longer than I realized. Man, we start talking and
Okay.
it just flies by. So
Like we
yeah,
said, you cut it into as many things as you want.
yeah,
That's how the world
yeah,
works. I would say on a positive note, the one last thing I'll leave with it is, um, being in this business for as long as I have and seeing what 2023 was and how down it was, and all the people that bought way too high in 2021 and 22, did not prepare themselves for a downturn in the market. I can confidently tell you for the first time in the last year, it has turned around, and it is turning around, which is very good. If you're a new owner, if you're looking to get into the business, it was very slow in 23, but I think we've looked in almost every one of our bigger portfolios has had a record. So in the last year to 2 years, just had their record month in May for
awesome.
occupancy, for revenue, for everything across the board. And that story is happening, probably for a lot of other management companies too, which is a very good thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, yeah, with how consistent self storage has been over the years, and then with it was a downturn, but again, it wasn't like a crushing blow
Yeah.
of we can't operate our business, and then to come back out of it already and be on the way up, and with what everybody's experiencing right now, it is awesome to see the kind of rebound and how quick it happened, and where everybody's at right now. So yeah, a lot of positive things where it felt like in the winter everybody was a little uneasy, not sure what was going to take place or if there was going to be a busy season this year. And so, yeah, that's awesome. Good to hear. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Self Storage Insight Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Just a quick reminder, this episode was brought to you by CC Storage. CC Storage is a no-cost property management software that allows you to pass the fees for credit card processing on to your tenants, freeing up some CapEx space for your business and helping you more efficiently run your storage facility. If you'd like to learn more about CC Storage, click the link in the description below, and we hope to see you again for our next episode.